taking this surface here and this surface here, and we're compressing 1/8 of an inch. What happens then is, as this sifter rotates in a 2.5 inch circle, 265 times a minute, it's taking these decks and it's flexing them. What happens when the decks flex is you break the corners out in them. So anybody that has broken decks like this, it's because the stabilizer assemblies are not shimmed up correctly. This other thing on your decks, guys, can you flip that over? Unless the decks are held in tight, you're going to wear your gaskets. The deck should be torqued down to 30 foot-pounds torque, and what that'll do is keep the gasket surfaces from rubbing against one another. It'll also keep the holes in the deck from getting egg-shaped. We're going to go inside now and show you how to properly gasket a deck. Okay, this is an old deck, and what DJ's doing is cleaning the track. The track has to be perfectly clean, and all the glue has to be off it before you can put the new gasket in it. Now this is a dovetail joint that's in this deck. So you got to remember, you've got to scrape the glue and the old gasket out of that dovetail. So we actually modify a screwdriver and cut a dovetail into it so that when we drag it down the track, it scrapes out everything in it. Once that's done, we'll wire brush it, and then the gasket can be put back in just like we do on a new deck. But when you regasket a deck, it's very important to get it clean. Before we do a new deck, I'll show you an insert frame. Okay, our insert frames that we have here are made two different ways. We have screws which are held in, which is the old way of doing it. The plastic zippy ties is the preferred way of doing it now. It makes it very easy to replace the ball wire. This ball wire should be replaced about every 5 years. The wire on the other side of the screen is your sifting wire, and you can see the balls and cubes inside. What you want to do is, since we've gone to the polyurethane balls, these polyurethane balls will last approximately a year in normal surface. What happens is, people that are still using the rubber balls, the fumigant that can be in the product tends to make the rubber balls swell up. Once they swell up, there's no room between the ball wire and the screen for the ball to bounce, and it simply sets in there. The other thing we see is people that leave the balls in too long, and the balls wear through to where they'll actually go through the wire very shortly and wind up in the product. So it's very important that when sanitation takes it apart, they check to make sure the balls don't need to be replaced, or if they've got rubber balls in it, they haven't swelled up. The other thing on an insert frame, and we'll show you when we gasket the hopper, is these corners are meant to slide in under 2 screws. If the corner is broken, it needs to be repaired. And we'll flip this deck over and show you. We'll take a break here. What we're going to do now is just show you, in the top of the sifter deck, you have 2 flat screws, one on either side. This is going to have a gasket in it. It's very important to have the screen fit under those screws. So what we're basically doing is taking the insert frame, the groove in it, and we're placing it in back of those screws. And it'll slide right in. That makes it flush. What a lot of folks do is they'll set it on top like this, and it won't go down all the way because that screw is blocking it, and they beat it in with a hammer. As soon as they beat it in with a hammer, they break off the corner of the screen, and then it has to be replaced. Okay, we're going to gasket a new deck now, and they gasket the same way as the old decks do. Okay, now we're going to gasket a CS-1 Sifter deck. In a CS-1 Sifter deck, you have several different types of gaskets. You have the lip seal, which DJ's got in his hand right now, and you'll notice that it's got a dovetail groove on it. That goes down in the groove of the sifter, and the flat lip on it lays on top of the screen above it. That gasket will be put on 3 sides of the sifter. The other gasket is a plain seal, and that's simply a dovetail piece of rubber with a flat surface that goes on the opposite 3 sides of the sifter. Then we have a tail seal, which is what the insert frame butts up against, and then we have 4 corner seals, which will go on the corner of the sifter. Now if you go to a little wider shot, DJ will show you that he'll put the lip seals on the end of the sifter where you have the pocket where the flour or product drops down through, and on the 2 sides right there, so that what it basically does is seals the screen that will be below it. He'll put the plain seal on the outside edges and the back where you don't have any contact with the material, you just simply want to keep the product inside the sifter. The corner seals obviously go on the corners, and the tail seal will go on the other side of the deck. We're using a 3M rubber adhesive. We keep it refrigerated. We're using a rolling pin, and what we're basically going to do is stretch these gaskets out so that they'll go into the dovetail groove, and then the gasket will expand back to its normal size and fill the groove in entirely. We'll sand any dust or powder off of the gasket with a wire brush and then just blow it off. And what this does is gets rid of any dust, powder from molding. We'll apply the glue, and he'll apply the glue to the deck, and he'll take a 1/2 inch brush and just make sure the glue is nice and uniform. And this has to be done fairly quickly and smoothly. It can't be done in a walk out, get a phone call, and come back, because the glue will take a set. And what he's basically doing with the rolling pin is just pushing it down in the groove, stretching it out, and the gasket will immediately come back in. Then he's going to cut a notch at a 45-degree angle and trim off the upper portion. What that does is allows the next gasket to butt up against it uniformly. You might do the next one a little slower, D, so you can see how they do it. He's going to cut that at a 45-degree angle, and then he's going to trim off the lip. Then he's going to cut it to the right length so that when he rolls it in place, it fills the entire groove. It also squashes out any excess glue. Okay, that gasket is in place. He'll do the same thing on the other 2 sides, and what that'll do is give him the inner seal for the deck, so that when that's placed on top of a screen, the lip seal will cover the 3 portions of the screen that match to the deck above it. DJ's